Why are you going to put, $20,000 wheels on a $1,000 car? Why do you want me to attract attention, build a database, and try and retain people if your website's from when Al Gore created the internet? This might be good. Is this going to erase good? Let's see. Yeah, so I'll use this and erase this and then talk about what it is. I better get a picture before I erase it. Max, this is the second studio coming. This is the new studio that we're going to have here for the business. It's going to have some wall of TVs, the really slick dry erase board that lets the blue pull through. It's going to have the standing table where we can do some teaching. We can do these videos on the new studio. But in order to do them, I got to erase what we have here. So let's talk about the meeting yesterday with Red Feather, because it's exactly what our roots are, dealing with local restaurants. And obviously we deal with mostly national restaurants, but I love getting in the trenches there, because what I look at in a meeting like that is, they're here, we're here. And is there a reason to work together? Because honestly, we're not for every restaurant or small business, just like every restaurant doesn't necessarily need us. And so what I analyze and look for are three key components. Are they getting their A? Are they getting their R, B, and their R? Are they attracting attention certain places? Are they building a database? And are they retaining them? But more importantly for me, I look at what the ownership's thought process is. Because if they don't appreciate this, why do you have me? Like the first question I always ask years ago, it doesn't come up much with restaurants nowadays, is your website up to date? Because why are you going to put $20,000 wheels on a $1,000 car? Why do you want me to attract attention, build a database, and try and retain people if your website's from when Al Gore created the internet? Did you ever hear that, by the way? The quote from Al Gore back in the 80s or early 90s where he talked about how he created the internet. It's pretty funny. It was kind of taken out of context like everything is, but it was funny. It's a good joke. So what I look at in these meetings, as you just heard, is number one, I want to find out the owner involvement. Because if the owner's absentee, if it's an attorney that owns 5 restaurants and he's never going to be in the 4 walls, that's going to really hurt with how we can work on getting attention from the team. Because we've got those 6-week challenges. There's 8 6-week challenges that cover 12 items. And those 12 items bridge this, but you've got to have somebody that gives a shit. You've got to have somebody that wants to see the vision through and help you put it in place. Because one of our biggest problems is that there was always this gap between us, is that restaurants hired us to do stuff and we were done for you and they weren't involved. And that's a problem. The second thing is analyzing where they're getting attention from now. What are they doing to get attention? What do they wish they could do? And what's not happening? One thing they brought up, which was highlighting a lot of their content. They don't have video like this. They don't have a lot of stuff out there that can help them tell the story. And there's some really cool stories happening there. The next part is, what are they doing to build a database? They're, for the most part right now, they've got a tool on their website that gets some data, but not enough, and doesn't do it intrusively enough, and doesn't get that enough data often enough, meaning not enough people are filling it out and you're not getting enough information. But then also they've got Open Table, because they're doing all of their reservations through Open Table. So that helps get some data, but it's sitting somewhere. It's getting dust on it. So how can we take that and how can we tie it in with the R? How can we retain? Because it's great that you're building a database and you got Open Table and you got your website. Well, shit, if it's getting dusty. And so now it's, hey, how do we now take that and we can retain people's attention through Facebook and Instagram, through in-store marketing, through email and text. The big thing is this part here, this in-store, if we're gonna retain the attention of customers in-store, the missing component there, we have to have the owner. The owner's got to be on board. He's got to have management and systems in place to say, hey, every Sunday we announce a new contest. Every Monday we walk around and go, hey, guess what? How many liters of beer you think we sold last week? This is the new Facebook and Instagram. Do they or scan this? You've got to have owner buy-in. So that meeting yesterday was like, hey, here's Red Feather. Here's ABR. Is there a reason to go? Is there? And for me, hell yeah, there is. Great brand. The owners and the management care. We haven't seen Dutch's yet. I've seen it before, so I know what it's like. It's pretty awesome. But the atmosphere, I can just kind of taste the steaks already. But the atmosphere, the care, the compassion, and the willingness to invest in this by the owner's key. So that's what came out of that. What do you think?
Looks good.
What about the orange marker? That looks a lot better than black. See this okay?
Yeah.
Can you see it okay down there? I feel like my screen's a science project. So what I'm going to show you is kind of how we work with restaurants. And I can tell you, I was telling you beforehand, it's going to be different than what you'll see from anybody else. Our business model, when I started doing this, 2008, 2016, we were a boutique agency. We were like most of the marketing companies you've probably talked to in the city that come in and they'll do some creative, some graphic design. They work with 30 other types of companies. I mean, back in my day, we had Jeff Weiler, we had all these companies. And when I realized that restaurants were where we needed to play and we went national, that changed. And so we went from being a boutique agency to being a national restaurant marketing firm. What I found out was the negative part, which was unique from, I'll show you the stats, was that from 2018, 19, and 20, we kind of turned ourselves into a product. Is that we created a product we called the ROI engine that allowed restaurants to gain data through their website, through their in-store marketing, and through Facebook and Instagram ads to build a database and then monetize the database. When the pandemic hit, I noticed just so many things happening that people weren't using the back-end database correctly. They weren't using the data they had in a correct way to get attention. So when we reworked our company the past, I guess you could say 18 months, this year especially, is we've transitioned to where our company is a done for you. They're done with you. We're not, hey, you pay us this much money each month and we take your creative ideas and we post them, we do all. It's where we work together. Because I'm a strong proponent of there's things that have to happen inside the restaurant. There's things that have to happen online inside the restaurant. There's things that have to happen with the culture in order for us to market it correctly online. And so the other part of this, I call it the 6-week challenge because what we've developed is we've developed 8 6-week challenges. And I stole that from my gym. So I'll never forget when I joined my gym 10 years ago, actually it was 2010, so whatever it is, 12 years ago. I walked in, and no shit, I would walk in every day with a Laffy Taffy and a Coke. And I would do the CrossFit class. And about 3 months in, Matt Gallister sits me down and he goes, hey, you ready to take the next step? I go, what? Don't ever walk in my gym with a fucking Laffy Taffy and a Coke. I'm like, why? It's my goat juice. He's like, that is the complete opposite of goat juice. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this 3 months ago? Because 3 months ago, you hadn't worked out correctly in 5 years. I wanted to see you get into a pattern of 3 days a week, consistently coming and making strides. Now that you're there, don't ever drink a Coke in my gym again. Because you can keep your taffy for a couple months, we'll take baby steps. And then a couple months later, he was like, hey, you struggle with cardio. When do you run? I haven't run since college. Okay, you now run every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I don't care if it's 50 feet. You make an effort. And so over the course of 3 years, I went from having about 30 pounds of body fat on me to having a six-pack in my 30s. And I was like, oh. And so when I looked back on this, I'll show you kind of the concept, what I call what Matt would do, was I looked at everything that if I owned this restaurant or any restaurant, what would I do? And I also identified that if I gave these 12 items to a restaurant, they would lose their shit and not do half of them. And so I came up with what I call 6-week challenges, is where they piggyback. We're going to dominate this, move to this, dominate this, move to this, so that in the end of a year, you've got a marketing plan that, you ever heard the terminology red ocean, blue ocean?
Yeah, you talked about last week.
You've got a marketing plan that's put you in the blue ocean that nobody's doing. And so that's the game plan. And I put on here 600 customers is all it takes, because one of the things I found, and I'll show you this, is that people think that in order to increase their sales at their restaurant, they got to have an impact on 10,000 people. Like, no, it's literally a few hundred people new, a few hundred people frequent, a few hundred people that used to come up more often. But I looked back at our history. So for 9 years, me and my dad and brother owned a boat and RV dealership. We built up the 3 locations where Kona Ice's headquarters is in Florence, Kentucky right now. I built that building. That was our 7-acre store. When we built the building, we built a 5,000 square foot tackle department. Not because we wanted to sell tackle because there was no margin in it, we were too little, but because I wanted to have something to give away free to get people to come to our place and buy boats. So I'm analyzing one day, our biggest competitor, we did 15 million at our biggest year, 15,461. Our biggest competitor was Bass Pro Shops, which was ironic because Bass Pro Shops boats sucked compared to what we sold. They sold the lower end boats, we sold higher end, but oddly enough, similar prices. Bass Pro Shops had a Sunday circular every Sunday. $20,000 a week in the Enquirer. They were on radio, Q102, LW, B105, they were everywhere. Sure. They were on TV. I could not outspend Bass Pro Shops. It wasn't happening. Johnny Morris had way more money than Matt Plapp and Dwayne Plapp and Sam Plapp. So what I looked at was what could we do differently? So I came up with the idea. I said, I'm going to put a gift card in every fisherman's wallet within 3 hours of Cincinnati. My accountant's like, why? I'm like, because I want them to open up and see Johnny Morris's insert in the Sunday paper. That's the guy that used to own Bass Pro. I think he sold it. I want them to look at it and go, that's a great spinnerbait. Hey, I've got a gift card to Plapp's. Let's go down there. Because then when they walk by a boat 20 times, they buy the boat. I told them yesterday, I told my team, I was telling an example. I'm at the Tom Gill Chevrolet to get an oil change. I'm a car guy. I've had 40, I think the car I've got is my 44th car right now. I'm 45 years old. I have a problem. Yeah. I've wasted a lot of money, but I have fun, whatever. If I die tomorrow, I'll be able to say I had fun. And I was telling them I went to Tom Gill Chevrolet one time to get an oil change for our company dually. And no shit, within an hour, I left with a brand new dually, because they told me the one we had wasn't going to do what we wanted to do. It needed to be replaced. But then I also saw a Suburban they had a deal on. I got my dad a Suburban, and I bought the Chevy SSR convertible truck that had the vet engine. I went back. He's like, how'd the oil change go? That was pretty long. I'm like, well, got 3 cars. Tom Gill knew that having me walk through that entire showroom would get me to buy cars. That's why they do it. That's why service walks through. So when we built our dealership, I built it around how can I outsmart Bass Pro Shops. Number one was the gift certificates. So how we get those gift certificates, I looked and I realized I wasn't even a fisherman, that there's bass fishing tournaments all over the region every week from April to November. Tuesday night at Big Bone, Tanner's Creek in Indiana, Wednesday night. And I'm like, you know what? Nobody sponsors these. I'm going to sponsor them. I'm going to give them $50 in gift cards if they're this many people. If they're over 21 people or 21 boats, you get $100 in gift cards. We gave out 35 grand in gift cards on average for a 3-year period. Every angler in this city had a gift card. I knew Bass Pro Shops wouldn't show up. We put a trailer. We had two trailers, a 38-footer and a 58-footer, that would show up at these events with 30 or 40 people, but they were a captive audience. Sure. They had a boat, they had accessories, they had parts. So I put all these things in place, and the funniest one was my radio buy. Mike Frederick, I think they're down here somewhere, Bonneville. I used to work back in the 90s at Q102, WGR, Channel Z, and B105. When I put this strategy together, bass fishing tournaments are 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. I called up the station and said, hey, I want every commercial, and I knew we used to give them away. Nobody buys a commercial at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. I bought, for I think our budget, the max we spent one month was $700 a month, and I was on every station, the top 10 at least, in Cincinnati, Lexington, Louisville, Columbus, Dayton, and Indianapolis for like $500 to $700 a month. And Mike Frederick calls me. I think he's still the president of Bonneville or whatever it's called down here. They got a cool building down the street. And he's like, Matt, how is it that you landed in an industry that is the only one ever to need that commercial that you're paying $1 for? And I'm like, I don't know, I got lucky. Everything we were doing, the other thing we did was chat rooms. This is before Facebook and Instagram. We had Bass Boat Central, Fishing.com, Airstream forums. You're an Airstream dealer. Arctic Cat, there's an Airstream down here, by the way. Yeah, David, remind me to show you the Airstream down here. It's pretty cool. And then Arctic Cat forums. My guys were mandatory every hour on the hour to check in on those chat rooms and answer questions, not sell. That's how we outsmarted Bass Pro Shops. And so I tell you that because that's what I developed. When I looked at when Matt Plapp starts our restaurant, I wrote down, and I have about 50 things on paper. And then I kind of put them in order. And I came up with the top 12. And these are 8 6-week challenges with 12 tactics. In-store and online data gathering is pretty simple for us. In-store and online engagement, I'll walk through these. Weekly Facebook and Instagram videos, catering sales and birthday program, top customer program, community events and outreach, launching your podcast, and adding a social channel. If a restaurant in 12 months does half of those at half speed, they will dominate based on what they're doing today. I've looked at what you guys are doing online. If you do 2 of these at 50% speed, you will be in a 10 times better place in a year. And I say that not to down it, I'm saying it because these things will put you taking massive action. And all these are things that our goal is to not launch at once, but to piggyback so that as they launch, they keep happening. So the first one, 4 or 5 weeks in, it's on autopilot. It's going to happen all year. And then it just keeps adding stuff up. Like the birthday program. A restaurant like this, if you had 50 people a year, 50 people a week that were called and said happy birthday, I mean, it's going to drive 5 or 6 that wouldn't even thought about it. Oh, by the way, check your email and your text. You got something from us. At the end of the day, I can imagine the steak I have here is awesome. if I have a stake here that's awesome and you keep my attention on this device on a consistent basis through Facebook and Instagram and videos on YouTube and text message and email here and there, if it's always about you, I'm gone. But if all of a sudden it's, something simple, how the Bengals was topical. Hey, the Bengals are going to win. We all know. Click here to go on Instagram and tell us what you think the final score is going to be. We're going to randomly pick the person that's closest for a $100 gift card. I mean, the president of GE will do that. The Matt Plaps of the world will do that. The David Schlatters will do that. I mean, everybody will have fun with it. And it's all about engaging your audience around something. I mean, wines. My wife's a big red wine fan. The reason the cherry pie one's top of mind is a buddy of mine was their agent for Warrant, and he sent my wife one because he knew she drank red wine. Warrant has their own wine called cherry pie. And so he sent it to my wife. That's why when I was recording those videos, like cherry pie was in my head because it literally was sitting there at the house. Oh, we got some cool shit. Like my team is so smart on this stuff that they've done some really cool stuff. Steven that owns this actually sent me a video text message Christmas Day 2 years ago, so 2020. And the message was, he's like, Matt, I just want to let you know, like I'd never met him. He's like, I got your number from Doug. I wanted to let you know we are going to end the year up 100%, and I credit your team. And I'm like, 100%? I'm trying to think what 100% meant, because that's a big number. And I called him, and I said, hey, what's up, it's Matt, and we're talking. He's like, no, dude, seriously, we have doubled our company. And he's like, the only thing we've done different the last 12 months, we're the #1 apple spice franchise in the country, there's like 57. The only thing we've done different is your team built the catering automation for us. And every week, 50 to 100 people fill out that damn thing. And my team gets them. Yeah, half of them are bullshit, but
Don't double our business.
we're out. Was it different than anything you've seen so far?
Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely.
I like to be different.